and that's pretty rare. Yeah, and the jealousy just, love is terrifying.
It was very natural.
It was easy to act. And that's great, because you come into a movie where it's like, you're going to be a super villain, and you look like a fairy, and you just go like, oh, how am I going to pull this? Can't force that. So it was really a relief to approach it that way.
Thank you.
And I think we got close enough personally so that we were able to connect. When you're surrounded by 50 people who are there gainfully employed because of what you're doing at that moment, that's very distracting. So you need, and as I said, the camera sees everything. So if you're not connected, the camera sees it. It might just be slight, but it's huge. If you are connected, it feels that way. And so we did our best to just get to know each other and feel comfortable enough and trusting enough so that you could see it and we could express it without it feeling weird.
It was very organic. You guys had this projection of you were very much on your own island together.
I'm glad that came across.
It absolutely.
Beautiful confines.
Yes.
Subtle menace. We're going to walk away from this one today.
So I'm going to stand because I'm sick. So we've talked a lot about how your character bond was influenced by your personal bond and how it all just kind of created this beautiful image of the characters that you two are and how much you depend on each other. Have you had separately any connection like that with anybody else that you've worked with?
Are you trying to ask if he's cheated on me? I'm just wondering where you're going with this.
He's done so many movies. I mean, it's...
Both of us have worked with, we're kind of, I hate to call us, I won't say old timers.
Veterans. Seasoned.
Thank you. I've been lucky to work with some amazing people. I mean, I could just, John Candy, Ted Danson, Charlie Sheen, Tobin Bell. But the ones that stand out are like what Tobin says, the ones where you connect. Acting is a team sport, and so it's you just want to grab onto your partner. They're like your lifeline, and you just want to work off of them. And I've been really lucky, and Tobin's definitely among the most fun. He's never had such a wonderful, incredible experiences with me, so he doesn't need the microphone. Only kidding.
I played a lot of power guys, Western guys, cowboys, and cops, and detectives, and died a million times, and been shot, and killed, and beat up, and you don't get a lot of love scenes in that kind of career. So when I have opportunities to connect in that way, I grab them, and especially in the Saw films, because there was all of this other music going on, and there wasn't any of that. There was none of that music, so I was like, I want me some of that.
So we kind of talked about the legacy of it. I guess, is there a scene or a story or something that's kind of left a lasting impact on you guys, either individually or together, that you kind of still carry with you from your characters? I didn't mean to leave you speechless.
I hid boiled eggs in Darren Bousman's director's chair once, because he was such a baby about like no boiled eggs on set. I was like, who does he think he is? So I stuffed some down in there, and he was tormented for like 2 days. This went on. That was awesome. I tried to do a whoopee cushion joke on Tobin, but it backfired. He wasn't connecting with me in the scene, and it was like a pivotal scene. We both have pictures of it on our tables out there, you know, where he's talking to me. It's kind of like the initiation scene. It was the last thing we filmed, and he's like, where are you? Where are you? Like, what the hell? It's our last scene. He didn't say that. He's just like, and I said, I'm trying to do this fart joke, and it's not working. The thing wasn't working. Should have used the electronic. So that was a failure. I put it aside, and Tobin was like, please. And then the scene ended up being what it was supposed to be.
Do you know which scene she's talking about? Which film was it in? Was it in 3 or 4?
3. Yeah.
All right. We call it the initiation scene or the baptism scene. It's the scene where he says you're going out there and you think about it before you go, because once you go, you can't come back. Or essentially.
The red pill or the blue pill?
Yeah. And I don't know if you got the point in the back, but that was when she was doing the joke. And so we shot the scene a couple of times, and there were breaks in between takes. And while we were on the break, and by the way, this was the very last scene, I think, in the film that we were going to shoot in the film. It doesn't appear last, but we were shooting it last. And she had, in between takes, she was doing the boiled egg joke.
No, the whoopee cushion.
The whoopee cushion joke. All right. So, but I had been, we had already done everything in the sick room, and she had been taking care of me and coming and giving me a kiss on the cheek, and all of it, and so we had this textural thing going on between us, and she had opened the letter in the other room, and it was this deep thing. And so we're shooting this last baptism scene, and she's doing the joke in between takes, but the scene didn't feel right, and I felt like I had lost her. I couldn't find her. So when I would look at her in the scene, there was a different person there, because in between takes, she had been doing this, running around, planting stuff in Darren's chair, and I was like, oh, let's put on the brakes here a second. I need you back. Come back to me. I need you. Look, I'm right here. I'm right here. And she said, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. I hear you. And that's the take they used, the one after that, because she did get it, and I got it. I got her back.
Thank God.
As far as the traps go, was there ever, how familiar were you with the traps going into filming the movies? And was there ever a time you were like, wow, that's really cool, or like, wow, that's really fucked up?
I can give her the microphone, because I had the blessing of being behind it all, but not having to be there in most of the trap rooms. I mean, I was in a couple of them along with Cecil, and but there are people that are hired to design those crazy things, and that's not me. I didn't give much thought to the traps, or I was thinking way more about his philosophical, theological, literary, musical, thing than about his fact he's a mechanical engineer and was responsible for it. But those traps were designed well before the thing was ever on set. And now when I actually had to handle them, then I paid way more attention. For example, in Jigsaw, that last scene in the Jigsaw film recently, I have to handle a very complicated machine. I worked on that for almost a week so that I could take it apart and put it back together again without even looking at it, because John built it, and I wanted it to read that way. So that's another one of the blessings for me in these films. I have not had to have a lot of blood and gore from being in these trap rooms, because he designs them, sets them up, and they're there. Now Shawnee's been in a few, so she might be able to address this more specifically.
Well, we all know the jaw trip and the needle pit, but somebody came by the table today and brought up Oompo, was that the actor's name?
Oh, yeah.
In the twist?
Oompa was on the incinerator.
Oompo, no, he was on
He's in the rack.
the rack.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah, he's good.
I watched him film that scene and he was like, he gave it all. I thought that was pretty awesome. That was on my mind today. And I know Darren Bousman's answered the question, like when he talks about the trap, his thing was that they all had to work, like be practical. That was a criterion. That's a terrifying thought.
How would you compare like working with James Wan to like Darren Lynn Bousman? And Darren Lynn Bousman's actually like from Kansas City, so like,
Oh, that's right.
if like any like more fun stories on that might be kind of exciting for us Kansas City peeps.
That's probably better with Tobin. I worked with James for a day, and you could tell in that one day that he was like gonna traject like he has. You know, he was just that mad scientist director who had 100 very specific shots in his head and got everything that he could, and then like as the time was going down, you could see the file going like through the 100 other shots he wanted, and he knew like which ones, the list of priority, you know, and he was like devastated when he couldn't get it, but he moved right on into the next scene. I mean, he's like, so in one afternoon, you could tell, I started hearing stories of like other movies he was doing, and like car chase scenes, and he wanted to strap himself to the bottom of the car. So I'm going like, yeah, it makes sense. And but Darren's super creative in his own right, totally different styles, personality. But I mean, Darren was just doing these crazy plays out in LA that were interactive and could go different directions. I'm like, his mind is, I think they would say ADD or what, but like just a million. I would not want to live in that head. It reminds me of Linda from Becker. She says, you don't know what it's like in here. Super creative.
James Wan is Saw 1 had 17 or 18 days to shoot that whole film. So he was up against it time-wise, big time.
That's unreal.
Yeah. The one thing that, James was really easy to work with. He's very, very mild-mannered guy. I remember he helped me with one thing, and that was getting up off the floor. We had one take. We only had one take for me to take that thing off my head, because the reset on once it was off was at least a couple hours to get it back on to look right. So we only had one take. But we rehearsed it a couple of times, and James came over to me once and he said, give me a little more in your body from the fact that you've been there. So, like if you were lying on the floor for that amount of time, the ache in your body, the stiffness in your body, slowness with which you get up. And so I added 10% to what I was already doing, and it was huge. Camera sees everything. That's what they used. We got in one take. So James was up against it. You get 18 days to shoot a film. It's not much time.
All right, we got time for one more.
What role would you guys like to play that you haven't already? And I love also that I see ASL at Crypticon. I just wanted to say that too. Tell Paige I say hey. It's all good. I was just talking to
I feel bad. Did any of the questions in the back? I can hardly see back there. Have you guys just been raising your hand the whole time?
It's on the back.
Yeah, it's completely dark back there. I can't see.
It's on the back row. Step up. Yeah, there you
Do you have one from the darkness coming out?
In answer to your question, the more complex the character, the better. You know, because we're not all one thing or another thing. You know, we've got all these parts of us that are going on.
I just want my daughter to direct me in something, and that'll be enough.
Hi. If Jigsaw were to put you in a trap, what kind of trap do you think that would be?
Would you speak up just a little bit?
If Jigsaw were to put you in a trap, what kind of trap do you think that would be?
Tobin Bell.
Well, whoever.
If Jigsaw put Tobin Bell in a trap, what would be the nature of the trap? Sounding like complicated.
I guess the answer is this question.
Maybe you should go back to the darkness. You guys are awesome, by the way. It's just like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, if I could have my kids' attention, like we have your attention for this. I mean, someone was on his phone, he got chastised, you know? It's so rare in this life, in this world, that you get such attention, and it's really like, just like, you guys lavish it on us in these Q&As, and you really listen to the answers. It's such a, like, rare and beautiful. It's like, I really appreciate it, even though we might not have an answer for your question.
Yeah, for me, my Jigsaw trap would be a 19-inning game between the Colorado Rockies and the Montreal Expos. That's that simple.
Crypticon, let's give it up.